If you've ever found yourself explaining your prices, you've already lost. And probably this loss is not because your prices are wrong, but it is because your prices are unsupported. So here's what usually gets to happen. You start by quoting your price, you pass it on to your client, and when the clients get to hit the pause, then you enter into panic mode. So what usually gets to happen when that panic mode happens, you instantly and suddenly get to start talking. Yeah. You start explaining, you start justifying, you start defending. What are you defending? You're defending the price you already stated. But here's one thing that's for sure. The moment you explain your price, you already signal doubt. You already signal doubt in the prices that you're giving. So you want to justify that by explaining further, by talking so much, by defending it. Here's one false assumption that most of the early founders or solopreneurs get to fall into. Yeah. So they get to think that if I get to explain it better, my clients will get it. If I get to explain it better, my clients will eventually buy it because now they be in position to understand more from the perspective I'm trying to explain it from. Yeah. But guess what? That is wrong. Yeah? Because prices don't need to be defended. They just need to be supported. And for those of you who keep explaining, you're forgetting that when you start explaining your prices, you're already inviting a debate which eventually leads to negotiations. And you're also forgetting that when you explain your prices, you get your clients to start complaining, yeah, because you're talking too much. It's already irritating. You defending what they don't understand, it's already irritating. So they start complaining. You also forget the fact that when you explain your prices, you move from being an expert to being a vendor. And that isn't something you would want to have because authority does not explain, it anchors. So you explaining your prices more than anyone, or you talking so much, you justifying so much your prices, doesn't make you the authority. It makes you the anchor, which in this case isn't to your advantage. Recently, in my latest book, Price It Right, yeah, by the way, you can grab a copy. I'll be leaving the link in the description. I wrote a framework, yeah, that is the price framework. And there is a reason as to why, on top of it, there is a perceived value. It is not by coincidence or it is not by mistake that a perceived value is seated and always lives and dies at the top. For you to understand that, you need to start by having a visual imagination, yeah? And imagine yourself faced with two vendors, yeah? And vendor one has program A and vendor two has program B, yeah? So here's the thing. Both of these programs, they are sold at a high price, yeah? The only difference between these programs of these vendors is that vendor one has low support and vendor two has high support. Maybe for context, I want us to imagine that price being 100,000. Yeah, all throughout vendor A or vendor one and vendor two all sell the same price, or they all sell their courses at the same price, which is 100,000. Yeah, and that what gets to differentiate these two programs is that one has more support, which is vendor two's, and with vendor one, there's less support. Yeah? So guess what gets to happen? Who of these two vendors do you think is going to nail it and sell more of their courses? Yeah? So if you guess right, probably you would say vendor two because they have high support. And that alone gets to evidence and that alone gets to prove that your prices don't need to be defended, but rather they just need to have support. Yeah. Because with vendor one, because they have low support for their prices and they're selling at a higher price, so they are going to need to justify, defend, and explain so much why their courses or why their programs are at 100,000, yet they give low support, which isn't the case with vendor two. Yeah, because for them the price is already there and they get to give support. So maybe to give you a real life story of what just happened recently, yeah. About a few weeks ago, I crashed my phone and it had a cracked screen. Yeah. So I went on to TikTok and Facebook and what to look out for the most trusted guys who can fix my phone. And I landed on these two lads, yeah, mostly through TikTok and recommendation. On approaching these guys, the first guy was like, I'm going to charge you 280,000. That's it. And the second guy was like, yeah, probably it's the same price. So I sat down and thought to myself, what's the difference? Why should I go with this first person and leave out the second person? Or why should I go with the second person and leave out the first person? Yeah. So it turns out that the way these guys approached me, or the way these guys were closing their deals, mattered. Yeah. So this explains what happened. So with the first guy, he said, I'll get to charge you 280,000, and I'll get you a new screen. I'll get to fix your camera because the camera is linked with the screen, so there's too much work I have to do, explaining and giving me all, all technical statements I don't even understand. Yeah. So the second guy, he told me this was going to happen. I'm going to get a phone, a cracked one, and I'm going to fix it so that by the time you leave this place, you'll have to record yourself. Actually, by the time you leave this place, you'll have a better version of your phone. Yeah. And two, you're going to have yourself shoot a video so that you get to see if the quality is as you want it to be or if it is as better than it was. Yeah. And probably if you get home and things don't turn out as you want or things don't turn out as expected, you probably get to call me or return your phone and we get to, do further upgrade to it. And on top of that, I'll give you a free screen guard. Damn. I was like, okay, now this explains it. At the last, after telling me that, yeah, I'll also get a free screen guard, then it was me who asked the guy that, yo, how much is that going to cost me? The guy told me it's probably the same price in the market. Yeah, that is 280,000. So guess what? I went with vendor two. Yeah, and probably you watching this, you'd also go with the second person. Yeah, the second repairing guy, because this guy knew what he was doing. Yeah, he knew that I would like my phone for purposes of maybe photography, videos, and all that. So he was selling me the outcome. He was selling me the results instead of selling me that techie thing which the first guy was trying to do to me. Yeah. So what does that get to imply? It means that however much you get to have the same services, however much you get to charge the same prices, yeah, if you get to explain more of what it is that you do, yeah, and ignore the core factors of what the clients really want to have in the market, what the clients really want to have themselves, you're going to end up losing a deal. Yeah? So stop explaining, stop justifying, and stop defending your pricing, and rather get to do what clients want, because clients don't buy processes, clients don't buy the other lists of problems that you want to solve. All they get to buy is, can you get them have the results they want? So here's a pro tip I want to give you. Yeah? If you're probably running a business right now and you'd want to have yourself some sort of price test reveal, this is exactly what you're going to do. Yeah. The first thing you have to do is you're going to be very honest with yourself and get to ask yourself, if I go to remove all the price from the conversation I'm trying to have with my clients, will the value still be obvious? That is one simple thing you need to ask yourself. And remember, you have to honestly answer to that question. Because if your value isn't obvious without the price, then the price will always get to feel high, however cheap you think you are in the market. Your prospects, your clients, will eventually regard you as someone who is so expensive. And just so you know, if you really needed to support your price instead of defending it, here's exactly what you would do. So you'll start by aligning yourself with a simple flow of principle that every successful guy tends to put in place. You start aligning yourself with the same principle or the same flow that the second guy who fixed my phone took. Yeah? And basically, you will do this. You will start by understanding the problem. Yeah. And for this case, if you go to understand the problem, then you get to name it before your clients. Yeah. That is one. The second thing, you get to understand the outcome. Yeah. So you, the seller, if you get to understand the outcome of your clients, then get to present it to your prospect, to your client, and then understand the cost of inaction. What gets to happen if your client doesn't take this step? When you understand that, tell it to them, prove it to them. Yeah? And then lastly, you get to name your price. Yeah. So This is the exact formula that the second guy I went to that fixed my phone took. He understood the problem that, yeah, I had a cracked phone, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was I couldn't shoot my videos anymore. Huh? The problem was like I couldn't get to use my phone anymore. Yeah, it is not that I wanted a new screen, but my whole problem is that I couldn't fix my phone. I mean, I couldn't shoot videos, I couldn't take photos, I couldn't use my phone smoothly. So when you get to follow this sequence more clearly, that start with a problem, name the outcome, state the cost of inaction, and then lastly, name the price. When you get to follow that sequence in the right order, in the more clearly stated order, then the price you're stating will feel like a conclusion and never like a shock that most people get to start. Because when you start by naming the price, you're already going to shock your clients. But when you start by naming the problem, the outcome, the cost of inaction, and then lastly the price, it makes that price feel like a conclusion. So stop explaining your numbers and start supporting your value, because your price isn't too high, it is just unsupported.